I do. I do have access to record. So today we're going to learn something that I never heard that we could do, is to never get angry again. And some of us, if we say that, will probably implode because the emotions get so riled up. But today we're going to fasten our seatbelt and learn and grow together how not to be angry. Can we do it? I don't know. Dr. Lieberman, time to dance. Whoops, too loud, Brian. There you go. That's good. And it seems like your best day. Doesn't have to be very elaborate. You can do like the Muppets.
Well, if you put on some good Bee Gees, it might be easier.
Hey, wait a minute. That's my theme song.
I'll be right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Welcome to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show. Hello, my listening friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are new to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, this is going to be a treat. If you're listening, it's because we need to listen. If you are here back from the day before and the day before, oh my gosh, this is going to be a very important topic. And for those of you who don't know what my show is about, the purpose of my show is to provide a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today, I want to challenge you that if you are out of control, if it's difficult for you to remain in control when you're angry, which most of us go to like below a hypnotic state when we're angry, we don't even know what's going on, let alone count to 10 or, breathe or anything to that effect. But if you are having issues with anger, perhaps maybe even frustration or quick-temperedness, this is the show that's going to change many lives. I'm just declaring it right now. That's all I'm saying. Do you find yourself blowing at the smallest things, and then later on you feel guilty because you go, wow, what was I thinking? Well, could it be that maybe you're blowing up at something else? Could there be something else going on within you? Well, today we have New York Times bestselling author, Dr. David Lieberman, and he's going to teach us, get this, how to never get angry again. Do you think he can do this? Do you think that you will accept the challenge to learn about why we're angry and perhaps maybe take out our soul shovels and dig until there's only truth? Well, we'll see. So, since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. David Lieberman is on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Lieberman, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thank you, Lillian. It is wonderful to be with you.
Well, I'm really excited. I'm glad we had our little time to talk before the show. I feel like we're very like-minded. It's amazing how many people are doing so many things for the greater good, but we don't know who they are until we open up ourselves to that big yes to say, well, I want to learn more about your truth. So share a little bit about your background and what led you to all the books that you've written. My goodness.
Thanks. So I started writing about 20 years ago. So it's the first book called Instant Analysis. Oh, actually, I started writing on more philosophy. And then it occurred to me that it might be nice to eat and have, in my So I switched a little to psychology, and I always had a fascination with human nature. And as you know from some of the titles, they're very much oriented towards how to navigate difficult relationships, how to tell if you're being lied to, how to make peace. And then I found an interesting thing, and that is that if we weren't able to maintain our own emotional integrity, and we would just blow little things out of proportion, and we weren't able to keep it together and be able to maintain some sense of calm throughout our day, it's very, very difficult for us to succeed and achieve anything in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what led me to never get angry again, because the ability to just let 90% of life's trivialities just roll right off you. And most of the things we get excited about and most of the things that bother us and get frustrated about are silly. And we know this because after a few minutes, a few days, we're like, what was I thinking? But when you lose perspective, and that's really what it comes down to, I know we're going to get into that, but when you lose perspective in the moment, you literally go insane. And that's what perspective is. It's synonymous with sanity, my ability to see, accept, and respond to my world. So the wider our perspective, the greater my perspective when I enter a situation, the more easily I could see what's relevant and what's not. But when I live with a very narrow perspective, all consumed and very much focused on the me, it's very easy for me then to blow little things out of proportion. So what this book does is it allows for us to organically reorient our perspective and see through a much healthier lens. And we can see events of today through the lens of tomorrow. And if we're not going to be bothered tomorrow, then we learn how not to be bothered today.
That's very great in concept. Again, when we are going through that anger, that emotion, many people throw big tantrums. When little kids, little tantrums, big kids, big tantrums. And in your book, you say that all we need is 21 days to change this physiology. And so I'm excited that we're going to dissect it, go into it, because many people may love you and love everything about you.
Thank you.
But you're welcome. But if you make a mistake or if you say the wrong thing, I wrote an article called "You're as Good as Your Last Basket." All of a sudden, all the good that you've ever done is forgotten, and they treat that one thing as if it's 100%. And that happens when there's no logic. And so we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. David Lieberman of how not to get angry. And we're going to give away a book, 407-373-5959. I'll say be the 7th caller or texter to win a copy of Dr. David Lieberman's book, How Not to Get Angry Ever Again, when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. That's a large order. And I just want to, never to be angry again.
Yeah.
When I read the title, the first thing that I thought of, impossible, because we take everything personal. The book, The Four Agreements, I've interviewed Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., not Don Miguel, but Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. He's just wonderful, wonderful man. And, but not take anything personal. But don't we go around thinking everything's about us?
You are hitting on it, and if you want to reopen with that, I think we could give your listeners and viewers something very bite-sized and practical to take away.
Perfect. Okay, so since we're being recorded, what tip can you give to our viewers that okay, let me just ask this question. In a world full of counting to 10, like I never counted to 10 with my kids.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't. It is irresponsible. I mean, how many times have you gotten 10 chances to do something? My kids, I gave them 3. The first question was, do you want me to count? The second one was, okay, I'm going to start counting. And it was up to 1. I gave them a warning and I would say 1. That was it. 1 was it.
Yeah.
So how do you start raising your children?
Right, you're asking the bomb question. That is that you're training your children. I always tell parents, when you're screaming at your kids to do something, all you're doing is telling them is that when you ask nicely not to listen, when you reach whatever octave it is, at the 5th time, that's when they'll get up to brush their teeth. I said, so of course they're not going to listen to you. They're smart kids. They want to play. There's no consequence to not doing it. You get increasingly upset. And then you come and say, I always have to scream to get my kids to listen. Well, you always have to scream because that's when they learn that they need to take action. Rather, you simply say, the new rules. When mommy says to do something, you can do, I love that idea, give a 30-second, I always give my kids, got a 30-second warning, 5-minute warning. You know what? I don't want to be jarred, from something that I'm doing. It's respectful, it's responsible. They're wrapping up a game. It's, be a mensch about it. So, what? Giving you a 5-minute warning, and then I'm going to tell you it's time to go to bed. If they don't listen the first time, there has to be consequences.
Absolutely. That is, we are living a life devoid of consequences. So we'll talk about that. I forgot the question I asked you at first. I'm just kidding.
Taking things personally.
Once again,
It's written down. Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we're going to have a heated conversation with Dr. David Lieberman, because we're going to calm it down, and we're going to go, that doesn't work. It doesn't work when you're in the heat of passion, when you're angry and you just want to kick the cat and kick the dog. Although I don't ever suggest it. I'm just saying that many people get that angry. We're little kids throwing little tantrums. And then when we get older, we're big kids throwing big tantrums and losing control in front of our children, which is just as, we're all teachers and we're all students, and we're teaching our children. Now, a question I asked Dr. Lieberman when we were off the air, and he didn't answer it, which I love. He didn't answer it, but he did answer other things. So you want to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, click on my YouTube video with Dr. Lieberman today, because you're going to get extra tips on and off the air. Okay, so Dr. Lieberman, I've interviewed Don Miguel Ruiz. We're talking about, the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., and we've talked about not taking anything personal, which is, I think, the second agreement, which I talk about here on the show a lot. So we take everything personal because when we're little, the world revolves around us. And as we get older, the world revolves around us. Everything's about us. So let's diffuse that so we stop taking things personal.
Beautiful. First, so good. Let me give you an example about how it works mechanics. Then we'll take a step back and look at the psychology so we can apply it in all aspects of our lives.
Okay.
Here's the thing. How people treat you is a reflection of their own self-esteem.
Yes.
It says everything about them and nothing about you. The only reason we get offended is if we think it's about us. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're driving along and someone cuts you off on the road, right? Are you one of those people that, by the way, want to see what this person looks like who cut you off?
No.
Okay.
You know what I think?
Yeah.
I've accidentally cut people off too.
Right.
I give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, Lillian, you're healthier than the average. A lot of us, it will go ahead and say, this person cut me off. And sometimes we'll be tempted to speed up to see what the person looks like, because who do you think is going to typically bother us more? A little old lady driving like this, right? Or the young guy driving with the beer bottle in one hand, cigarette in the other, radio blasting. Who do you think would typically bother more people?
But you know what? I think that people that get angry with driving, it doesn't matter who it is. Anyone who's in front of them is a moron, and everybody who's behind them is a jerk. So,
yes. Right. So, okay, fine. So let me just switch real life metaphors. Let's say you're walking along. By the way, let me just button that up. And as most people are bothered by the young guy, because we assume that the little lady maybe didn't see our car, but the young guy did it to me on purpose. See, all about whether
we have bias.
What's that?
We have our own bias.
We of course we have our own bias. But let me take another example then. Let's say you are walking along. Let's see if we'll get you on this one. And someone bangs into you very, very, very hard, really hard, and you're bruised. Will you turn around a little bit annoyed?
We're not playing basketball?
We're not playing basketball. You're walking along, minding your own business, flowers in one hand.
I would probably go, hey, what's going on?
Great.
But I wouldn't be punching them or anything.
No, of course, not you, of course.
Yeah.
But you turn around perhaps a little bit displeased, but then you see it's a person in a wheelchair or maybe otherwise handicapped, blind, trying to get by. Where does any of your animosity, frustration, discontent go? Where does it go in that moment?
It goes straight to compassion.
That's right. Poof, gone. Why?
Because to whom much is given, much is expected, and someone who cannot see, obviously cannot see me. So then I would probably help them, and that would turn around real quickly.
Beautiful. That's right. You see, you instantly have compassion, or we could say empathize. Empathy, much more deep, is my ability to connect to you where your pain is my pain. But I can't feel your pain if I'm absorbed in my own, which is why there are people who would get banged into by somebody who may very well be handicapped but still get upset because they're absorbed in their own stuff. And the more self-consumed we are, the less empathetic we are towards others. But if I take my ego out of the way, it's not about me. if you're screaming at me, if you're yelling at me, if you're upset with me, I'm able to empathize with you and see your pain, your fragility, your helplessness. Because here's the thing, Lillian, when you're in a conversation with somebody who's disrespectful, they're rude, they're impolite, you're either going to focus on your pain or their pain. If you focus on your pain, you're now fighting an uphill battle against your own nature and will likely become angry. If you focus on their pain, you have empathy and you are not in pain yourself.
Okay, so we've done something, we've started like in the middle. And for those of you who would like a copy of Never Get Angry Again, it is really a great book. It's about learning about yourself really more than the other person. It's because what you see in others is who you are. If you're angry with others, you're angry with yourself. And, this book really dives into that of who we are, not necessarily of the other person. So Never Get Angry Again, 7th caller, texter 407-373-5959. Now, let's start from the very beginning, because many people don't understand the emotion of anger. Mm-hmm. And, there are people that the only time I know they're feeling is if they're blowing up. Yeah. If they're angry. So let's talk about the root cause of anger, because I know that you talk a lot about that at the beginning of the book. So let's start at the very beginning.
Okay, so let's say, once again, we use a lot of examples here just to make it more relatable. You're walking along and you see a bear in the woods, right? You've got the old fight or flight response, which is initiated. The body produces adrenaline and cortisol, a number of neurotransmitters and hormones, in order to ready us for battle because we feel physically threatened. When we become angry, it's always because of a perceived pain or fear, which are really opposite sides of the same coin. And that is that I feel emotionally threatened. I am vulnerable. I feel helpless. And the anger is the physiological way for me to compensate for that, to feel more powerful, to feel more in control. But it's just an illusion. It's a manifestation of the ego. The more angry we become, the less in control we are. But the ego tricks us into believing that if I can control you, then I'm in control of the situation. And that's not true. A person who is able to rise above their own nature and maintain self-control is the one who's able to become angry-free. And you'll see that all times we become angry, it's either because of a lack of respect or a lack of control. I'm embarrassed, I'm criticized, I'm mocked, I'm humiliated. All these things make me feel like I'm not good enough, like I'm less, in which case I feel helpless. I feel like I'm going to disconnect from you. I don't feel like I'm good enough to be loved and be accepted by you. So I become angry. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. Not everyone manifests their anger in the same way. You mentioned before, somebody who you don't know how they're feeling unless they blow up with anger. That's overt anger. You've got those passive-aggressive folks, the ones who aren't able to express their anger in a direct way because they don't feel like they can stand up to the person, to the situation. So they find little ways to inconvenience the other person, but they allow that anger to leak out. And then you've got people who suppress their anger. They convince themselves, you know what, it's not the end of the world. So the person took my kidney, took my car, whatever it is, that's all right, I've got another one. And they suppress it and suppress it and suppress it until it manifests in a myriad of physiological symptoms, from, heart, chest pains to backache to arthritis and so on. And there, as you know, there are myriad of studies that talk about the connection between anger specifically, emotional and mental disorders.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've had doctors come on the show say that all disease has the root cause of an emotion. There's an emotional component of all disease. And that is why I'm working on the registered service mark for, we've got, you can take a pill, you can take responsibility, but now it's the soul shovel, is digging deep. And people are afraid to dig in deep. We're more comfortable trying to dissect you and what you're doing wrong than looking at myself. And that's what the ownership of responsibility is about. Not about blame, fault, shame, and duty. It's about empowerment and freedom for me. And so let's talk about, you say that the root of anger, the cause, the soul wants to do good, the ego wants to be right, and then the body wants to escape How do we consolidate those things together?
Beautiful. So let's go ahead and just break down the psychology there. You've got the body, the ego, and the soul, as you mentioned. The body wants to do what feels good. The ego wants to do what looks good. And our soul wants to do what truly is good. The alarm clock goes off in the morning and they all battle it out, right? Anytime we overindulge in the body, eat in excess, excess sleep, excess entertainment, temporarily feels good. How do you feel about yourself afterwards? Sorry, I asked that, right?
Yes.
Right? It gnaws at your self-respect. You wanted to get up to go running, or you wanted to eat something healthy. Instead, you overindulged. And two, with the ego. Anytime you buy something you can't afford, make a joke at someone else's expense. Think of the ego, by the way, as a projection machine, image, a movie, if you will, of how you want the rest of the world to see you. And the wider the chasm, the bigger the difference between who I am in this image, the more draining it is. Right? And whenever, we know this is true, whenever you try to put on airs, twist, contort, move away from what you know is right and responsible in order to win somebody else's praise, to accommodate them, even though you know it's not right, it chips away at your self-respect. But when we make a choice to do what's good, what goes with our conscience, our sense of moral right and wrong, our soul, in spite of what feels good, irrespective of what looks good, that's how we gain self-esteem. And here's the key. Self-esteem and the ego are inversely related. It's like a seesaw. When one goes up, the other goes down. The more I genuinely like me, the more I respect me, the more I love me, the less ego I have. The less I begin to love myself, the more the ego exists, because the ego is a false self. It only exists to compensate for my feelings of guilt, inferiority, shame, aspects of the self that I'm not willing to own and accept. The degree to which I accept myself, the ego doesn't exist. But if I don't accept me, then my ego is going to engage.
Okay, so if I don't accept me, then my ego is going to engage. And we all know, and when we talk about the ego on the Lillian McDermott radio show, we talk about how the ego wants to look good, be right, which you cover all of these things, in control, which is the false belief that I'm in control, and then comfortable. We don't want to get inconvenience either. And I remember Eckhart Tolle saying, the song of the ego is, I don't get no satisfaction. And if all of us, if, you know, there's a good, people confuse the self-esteem with the ego. And, and the two of them may not be interchangeable at all. So if we are in our ego, would you say that it's a lot easier to take things personally?
Yes, of course. And not only aren't they the same, they are the anathema, the opposite of one another. Self-esteem refers to the degree to which I generally, truly love myself and feel worthy of good things in life. The ego is a false self, which is why the less I like me, the more egocentric I am. Now, here's the problem. As I become egocentric, I'm now dependent on the rest of the world to feed me because I don't have self-respect or self-esteem. That means then my feelings of self-worth are like a leaf in the wind. If you say something nice, I'm in a good mood. Say something negative, I'm in a poor mood. I'm very vulnerable, very sensitive. The more ego-oriented, people too often assume, yeah, a person's a big ego, they're very confident. No, they are fragile inside with this rough exterior to protect a weak interior.
You know, we could probably do a show just on the ego, but, you know, and what I'm getting from you when I was reading your book, the more we are focused on the ego, the more anger susceptibility we might have. And,
for sure.
And so I want to encourage you. The book is called Never Get Angry Again, and it's really the dissection of you. And so be the seventh caller or texter, 407-373-5959, and win a free copy of Never Get Angry Again by Dr. David Lieberman. And we're going to continue our conversation worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Okay, so we got this ego thing, but here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't have an ego. I'm this meek and mild little person. But let me tell you, that is not true. Because, you know, everybody, if our ego is out of control, our rage, our anger, but how do you get someone to dig deep with their soul shovel so that they can coordinate it and say, you know what, I have been getting angry. What is the root cause of my anger? How do you let's talk about that.
Good. So we can talk about different personality types, and there is the type of person who will say that they're not angry when they are, when in fact they are, and that's something that we can delve into, because when you know your personality type, it helps you to see that, oh, I am angry, I'm just not able to acknowledge it, because maybe when I was younger, I wasn't able to express it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not able to express it. And so, I also want to talk about the 3 manifestations of anger, which I think what we're basically doing right now.
Right.
And I will tell you that when I started looking at myself, because I was this walking victim most of my life, the world determined, although I was successful in many ways, the world kind of determined how I perceived my success.
So you were always waiting for somebody else to give you that pat on the back, and you would never feel fulfilled.
Well, and it was also because
Repeating.
because I've gone back and I've looked at, when I was 7 years old, my teacher told me I'd never amount to anything. So
Huh.
it wasn't until I was digging deep that I remembered that memory, or that my grandmother told me that if I stopped learning how to play the piano, she wouldn't love me anymore. And guess what? I stopped learning how to play the piano. So I took that never amount to anything, unlovable person as I was going through life. But it was when I realized that, I used that as, wow, what a great teacher of not to be. And I was able to go down to that level and say, this is where it's all coming from. So how do I embrace that? And I had someone just recently, and I would love to address this maybe on the air. I was coaching someone. I'm a certified life coach, and I was coaching somebody about their childhood. And she said, I just want to forget it, because I was talking about forgiveness and gratitude. And she goes, I just want to forget. And I said, well, that's how dementia happens. You don't want to erase your past. You want to learn and embrace it. So what would your tips for that person who just wants to erase the past, not deal with the past, but it's always intertwined with their present and future?
Right, that's just it. Is I have a hard time accepting the past if I think that everything was done to me by God because he doesn't love me. And so I don't want to accept it. But when we really come to understand that everything that happens is for us, not to us,
Yes.
it's geared to our good and for our growth, and we mind the experience. We may not understand it. The ego wants to say, I want to know why this happened to me or that happened to me. But if we accept that it's all is out of love for our good, we're able to look at it compassionately. But this person is, anyone that says I need to forget my past needs to look at it. Doesn't mean you have to dissect every aspect of it, but someone once said an unexamined life is not worth living. As you said, when you were 7 and with playing the piano, is that these are pivotal moments. And when you go back to them and you see, this is where my fear of rejection comes from.
Yeah.
This is where my fear of not being lovable comes from. This is where my fears come from. It dissolves. And much like Sarno's book, John Sarno with back pain, when you understand that the anger is causing the pain, it helps to dissipate it, even though you didn't do anything. The awareness is so powerful.
And as many times if I said on the show, too many animal products can cause, pain in the body and depression, anxiety, all these different things. I just met a butcher who became vegan this weekend, and he was talking about all the pain in his body that he was absorbing from the animal. So many things we can control. Here we go.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn and grow with one another. You can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I'm your host, Lillian McDermott, and I'm really excited because today we're learning with Dr. David Lieberman. He is our teacher today. I want to encourage you to go through life with childlike wonder. When the moment you think you know it all, put a chalk line around you, baby, because you are dead. Every day we learn something new, and I hope that we can learn new truths together on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show. I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please become a subscriber. By the way, I'm running a contest. I think it ends today. You need to like me on Facebook, like me on my social medias, or at whenyouneedafriend.com, and become a subscriber. And then put it on the Facebook page that you share the post, spread the good news about the show, and then you win a chance of 3 free coaching sessions with me. And so please subscribe to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show and like me on Facebook and share with all your friends. I want to encourage you while you're at whenyouneedafriend.com, please check out my sponsors, because without my sponsors, this show would not happen. And so I want to encourage you to go to the sponsor page and figure out how you can support my sponsors the way they are supporting the show. Last but not least, make sure that you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, click on the YouTube video, because you will get information that you don't get on the air. So encourage you to go there and just like me, subscribe on all my social medias again. And then today we have a book. It's called Never Get Angry Again. And I must admit, when I first saw that, I thought, okay, well, that must be a philosophy. That could never be done. And I'm going to ask our guest if he ever gets angry. I don't know. I'm just going to ask. But be the 7th caller or texter, and you will get this copy of the book. 7th caller or texter, 407-373-5959. If you call, please leave a message. And when you text, just write, Never Get Angry Again. Or I never want to get angry again. Whatever you want to say, I'll know. At the end, we'll pick the 7th caller or texter. So today we have Dr. David Lieberman. You can find him at drdavidlieberman.com. And this is not the only book he's written. He's written what? How many? 9 books?
12. And I only correct you because my mother makes me say it right. So
okay, 12 books. Well, on your website, you only have 9. So
yeah,
you're gonna have to
I know I'm not so technically savvy, so
but that's okay. So I want to ask you the question.
Yeah.
Why did you write this book? Was it because of your own journey, or what was it that prompted you to say, okay, I want to write this book because this is what helped me never get angry again?
Yeah, so I've written a number of self-help books on interpersonal relationships, and also in business, and also personal development. I found that, anger was something that was so universal and so darn destructive. And we sort of just accept, people say, oh, it's my nature. I'm just one explosive guy, or I grew up this way. It's my heritage.
Culture. Yeah.
Right. It's such nonsense. It is such an excuse, but they don't realize how damaging it is, how the people around them have to walk on eggshells, how, there are fewer things more invigorating than maintaining your calm and keeping your head when everyone around you is losing theirs. And the ability to and it's not a fake calm. You asked me if I ever get angry. Put it this way, I don't not get upset because I'm some sort of magical level. If you truly honestly believe that everything that happens is for the good and for your growth,
yes.
Why on earth? I may not understand it. That's only because my ego demands to understand it. But if my ego's out of the way, I just accept the fact I'm not in charge. I'm not running the show. My job in life is to be responsible, to take responsibility. The degree to which I do that, I will be able to see and appreciate all the good. What happens is this: if I refuse to accept responsibility, and really it's the pain of responsibility, it's either laziness or the pain, that's why I don't face the responsibility, why we don't go to the dentist when we have a toothache, why we won't have that difficult conversation with somebody at work. I don't want to face that pain. I then hide. And that feeling of hiding is what creates shame. Shame is not guilt. Shame is, I've done something that's beneath my level. I've fallen beneath my emotional, spiritual level. I could have acted better and I didn't. And if I don't go through that proper process of sort of getting myself out of it and then choosing to take responsibility and to right the wrongs, which you'll see in every 12-step program, you can't move forward unless you clean up the past, then I will end up justifying, rationalizing, minimizing. My ego has many tools in its tool belt in order to keep me from accepting responsibility. But that feeling of shame doesn't go away. And that's what gnaws at my self-respect.
I love that. I love that. I'm glad. So when you are you find yourself in a difficult situation, help us get through it. Because we talked about being a victim and taking responsibility. And by the way, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I have a page called 100% Responsibility Page. There are 4 little questions that will turn you from victim to responsible every single time. But the kind of responsibility, again, that I talk about is not shame, blame, fault, or duty. There's no judgment or emotional attachment to the word responsibility. It's really being the creator of your life. And if you created this, whatever is going on, you can uncreate it. And that's so empowering. And so we talked about that during the break off the air. But what helps you Dr. Lieberman, what helps you stay in control, even if it's a fake it till you make it?
Right. Right.
Let's talk about step number one. What do you do?
Good. Great. Can I just touch on one of your 4 points about taking responsibility?
Sure.
They're so powerful. I looked at them. And it's so important what you just said about looking without judging, without blame, without condemnation, because to have self-compassion for and the pain, in other words, and this, I'm now just going to dovetail into your question, and that is that when you're in a situation that's painful, it is such bad advice to say, oh, don't worry about it. It's not bad. It's not the end of the world. You know, when people tell it to us, we don't like it. We tell it to other people, it doesn't work. So why tell it to yourself? If it's painful, honor the pain. Say to yourself, I am in pain. Right now, I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling helpless. I'm feeling unsafe. Whatever it is, I'm in pain. Accept it. Don't condemn it. Don't judge it. But then ask yourself, what part of me, who is really in pain? Is it the real me or is it my ego?
Mm.
Right? And if you realize it's just a false self that's in pain and you dissect it, you break it down, you see, I am feeling pain because this person is yelling at me and now maybe I won't be loved by him or I don't feel worthy enough or I won't be accepted by him. So I'm getting angry as a way to compensate. When you begin to sort of look at it, it almost dissolves completely in front of you. Whatever doesn't dissolve, you're able to responsibly pick apart. And when you parse away the feeling of fear from the anger, you're able to honor the pain and the fear and recognize this is tough, but it doesn't mean I have to become angry.
So what do you suggest? I visualize myself getting cut off by a driver. I visualize myself being yelled at by a partner. I visualize myself. I've been dissected at that point when I'm not dealing with the pain.
Good. Yeah. So one thing you can do is the visual cortex, the part of the brain responsible for imaging and visualization, is very, very powerful. And there are a number of fantastic techniques, but certainly you can work through these scenarios with your imagination, visualizing it, and then responding in the way that you would like to respond. And what happens is the conscious and subconscious mind can't tell the difference between something that's happening and something you're imagining.
Yeah.
Which is why then you're able to really, there's a saying in biology that neurons, which are brain cells that fire together, wire together. What that means is every time there's a stimulus and a response, the connection between those two, the dendrites, they grow stronger. So when you are mentally rehearsing a stimulus and a response, you're actually creating that connection between those neurons as if it were actually happening. And you can rewire your physiology to accommodate a much more calm and controlled response. And we know people, Lillian, who have a hair trigger response to any type of insult or infraction because they've literally rewired the physiology for that instant connection. But we can rewire ourselves. The field of neuroplasticity shows just how malleable the brain is. It's not really rewiring. What you're doing is you're creating a new neural network to replace the old one. But as you said at the beginning, it can take as little as 21 days before you can reestablish those connections, which is why every time you feel like you're going to become upset, don't. Do what you can. Each and every time you rewire your physiology to work in your favor rather than against it. To be clear, this doesn't mean you suppress it. It means that you're going to allow yourself to channel that anger in a more constructive direction rather than to explode. Because every explosion makes it easier to explode the next time, the next time, the next time.
Yeah, we're conditioning. We're doing with the neurons. Joe Dispenza, the first person I ever heard, because when I was raising my children and they were little, I was told by the age of 7, whatever they know, you know, and their neurons, if they don't play before the age of 7, their neurons won't connect. And man, my kids played a lot. And so I just wanted to make sure imagination was created and all of that. But then I heard Joe Dispenza say, no, we can continue to work that. So what you're saying makes sense to me, that if we can help ourselves or learn how to get angry and allow ourselves to get angry and throw a tantrum, we can learn how to stop that in a more productive way. And I like but it begins within. It begins within. I see you nodding your head because you totally agree with us. This book is a really powerful book for those of you who would like to be a winner of this book, Never Get Angry Again, 7th caller or texter, 407-373-5959. And we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. David Lieberman when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. 7th caller or texter, 407-373-5959. We'll be right here waiting for you. You know, interesting. You know, a lot of people get offended with you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. And they say, well, it's not my fault. I've got diabetes, or my grandmother died of pancreatic cancer, or somebody died of whatever. It's not about fault, blame, shame, or duty. It's about, you know, figuring out different ways that we can do something different that's not working for us. And
That's
anger
right.
certainly doesn't work for us.
Right. You know, I always, there's no pill I tell people, I don't tell people, but the research shows that will ever make you happy.
Correct.
Now, our job is to be responsible. Sometimes if you are in a spot that you've, done all your, due diligence and, you want to explore medication in a responsible way, but I do think people default to it, for anything. I deal with like kids with ADHD. There's so many things from inositol to calcium, magnesium, fish oil. It doesn't mean that they may not need medication, which in and of itself has its own side effects and issues, but at least look holistically to see what you can. But why don't people do it, by the way? Because it's difficult. I can go and get a pill and take it, and then if the side effects, take another pill, another pill, another pill.
But the pill doesn't work. The pill doesn't work. Unless you're willing to do the work, the pill does not work. Unless you're willing to change your lifestyle, that pill will not work. And that pill may be a temporary placebo or nocebo, whatever it is, but there's nothing that will beat good nutrition or doing the work that you're talking about in the book, because the book is really about getting to know ourselves.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We talk about this on the show. You should be coming back every month.
I appreciate that. And that's really, people had said in other interviews as well, is that it's not a book on anger as much as a book on emotional health. Because the healthier you are, the more you accept and know yourself, the more anger-free you are. But if I'm mad at me, I'm going to take it out on the rest of the world. Of course I'm going to be an angry person. So if I'm not accepting responsibility, I'm running and hiding, feeling shame, how on earth can I maintain my emotional health?
How do you stop somebody? Because I saw in one of your books, I'm going to go back to your books again. One of your books, I'm like, okay, I've got to call you out on this one. It's like how to get people to do what you want, or
never get anyone to do anything.
Yeah. It's like, isn't that called manipulation?
Manipulation is you can use it manipulatively, but if I want you to do something for me, this is positive. Would you say you're manipulating kids into brushing their teeth or to eating healthy? You're using positive psychology in order to influence their behavior.
Okay. So start with the end result in mind, right?
True. Very good.
If I want, when I'm upset because my flight was, overbooked or whatever, and I go stand in front of that counter, I am not going to be angry at that person. I am going to love that person into doing exactly what my intention is.
And by the way, you're much more effective, right? If you come into the situation with a sense of calm, certainly without a sense of anger, you're able to deal with it much more responsibly, and you're going to get better results.
Yes.
It's not just about, a perspective.
Here we go. Thank you, Brian, for lowering the music. This is our last segment, Dr. Lieberman. Can you believe it?
We covered a lot, but a lot more to do.
I know. There's never enough time in this hour. There isn't. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn from one another. And today's teacher is Dr. David Lieberman. I want to thank everybody, by the way, that was so positive this last weekend, so embracing of me. I just want to say thank you. I am looking forward to working more with people that are supportive of the show, and people who are not supportive of the show. I'd love to hear from you too. This is the thing, Dr. Lieberman. Again, as good as your last basket. I wrote an article called As Good as Your Last Basket, and people forget the good you do when they're angry. And not only that, when you do something that is maybe not favorable, I'll take ownership if I say or do something that somebody else perceives as offensive or threatening or whatever. I take 100% ownership of that. But the other person needs to take ownership of that. And that's where the breakdown happens. Why do people run away from that? What is the cause? Why am I so offended? Why did I blow up and feel justified through my anger?
Right. Very good. Because here's the thing. If I don't love me, I can't imagine why you would love me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you love someone that's so unlovable? Why would you respect somebody that's so unworthy of respect? At the same time, if I have pervasive low self-esteem, which again, as we said in the beginning, also means my ego is engaged, I have a hard time giving love and respect. If I don't love me, I can't love you. I can control, I can take, but I can't. Again, it's a spectrum, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So this makes me feel very isolated and disconnected. So the ego wants to do a lot of things. Taking responsibility, admitting our faults, and acknowledging our wrongs is not one of them. It's last on the list, which is why we spoke about children during the break, and that's the worst thing you can do with the child is to call them out in public or in front of anyone else. We have a hard time acknowledging we made a mistake in front of our peers, let alone a child. So any type of critique or rebuke, whether it's with an adult or a child, should happen in private because that does help to reduce the ego. But you'll find that if you want to help someone to take responsibility, if you come into the situation with complete humility, you come into it with your ego diffused, their ego will not engage. But if you come into it full bared, upset, ignored, and angry, their ego can't help but to engage, and now you've got a confrontation.
Okay. So when you said the first step is to honor your pain, to understand I am not happy here right now. What's causing my pain? But when you're in that that mood that you just want to blow, that honoring my pain, and we talked about maybe going through the exercise when we're not going through the anger.
Right.
What would be the next tip that you can give people?
Good.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Good. So first is that the physiology is important to understand. And that is that it takes no more than 90 seconds for us to process an emotion out of our system. So even if you feel that first visceral, initial anger, for whatever it is, if you're able to maintain your calm, you will then regain control over your physiology. But if you allow yourself to silly just let loose with it, you'll end up doubling down, and that anger turns into blind rage and so on, then you can't think clearly. It's interesting, by the way, is when a person becomes angry, one of the hormones and neurotransmitters that the brain releases is called cortisol, which is also responsible for weight gain. It's called the stress hormone. It actually interferes with the ability of the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for executive functioning. It literally makes us dumb. When you become angry, you cannot think clearly. So the first thing you want to do is enter every situation. See, a lot of the reason why the book has gotten so much attention is because it's not a count to 10, punch a pillow, rely on just
there's nothing in there like that.
That's right. It shows you how to, your best offense is a good defense, if I've got that saying right. Meaning that
I understood you.
Thank you. You can tell I'm a real sports guy. The best thing to do is to end the situation with this wider perspective as possible. So when you engage that person in that scenario, you'll instantly be able to say, this is not that important. But if you come into it with a very narrow perspective, you're now fighting against your own nature. So the first is certainly do the work beforehand to increase your self-esteem, your self-love, to reduce the ego, which then widens your perspective, because it's the ego that interferes with the ability to see clearly. Right? Then when you're in the situation, you want to remind yourself, honor the pain without condemning, without blaming, without judging. This is painful. I accept it. For whatever reason, this is a painful situation. And then ask yourself, where is the pain coming from? What's the underlying fear? When you're able to nail that fear, which always has its root in a feeling of insecurity, not being loved, not being accepted, you are able to dissolve so much of it and then extricate yourself from the conversation or handle it more calmly. But you're going to see, physiologically speaking, every time you do it, it makes it easier and easier the next time emotionally. But you've got to bring the physiology behind you.
Okay. It's like preparing for a fire drill. So basically, we're preparing for a fire drill where with calmness, so that when you are going through the fire, a real fire, you'll know exactly what the body needs to do, and you follow it accordingly, right?
Yes, that's right. And in no way we're talking about faking it. You generally don't care because someone's screaming at you because you see their pain. You have complete empathy for them. You're not in pain. And if I'm not in pain, my ego's not engaged. I'm not fighting against anything.
Very good. Okay. So in your book, you talk about forgiveness.
Yes.
And we talk about forgiveness here on the show all the time. And I always say, and I'll say it again and again and again, there's a difference between forgiveness and trust. Just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean you bring them back into your life to hurt you again. So forgiving is for you, not necessarily for the other person. So people go, I want to ask for forgiveness, but they won't forgive me. Hey, listen, we got to deal with the work. We got to go through the process ourselves. So what are some of the keys to forgiveness that you would like to discuss?
Excellent. So first, if you want forgiveness from somebody else, there's a whole protocol, and we talk about that. The first is to enter the situation with complete humility and respect. You know, very often we'll say, I want to talk to you. I have something to say to you. And we show up at the person's job, or we act disrespectfully, and now you're back to arguing again. You want to come into it with complete humility, complete respect, because that's how the situation unraveled in the first place, was a lack of humility and a lack of respect. So come into it complete honesty and take complete ownership. Don't lay blame. Don't say, I only said what I said because you said this and so on.
Yes.
Full and complete responsibility for everything that unfolded. Everything. Now, you may ask yourself, why isn't this person obligated to step up to the plate? He or she may be, but now is not the time for that he said, she said. Get the relationship healthier, back on track. Take this. You will not bleed by taking 100% responsibility for how things unfolded. Then, when the relationship is healthier, you can revisit and say, I just want to talk to you about such and such, but it's a different conversation because it's coming from a different place. Very often what upsets us is we sell ourselves on a narrative, and it's so destructive. Go into the situation, humility, respect, take responsibility, and then you may just find this person is able to step up themselves. And if not, then when the relationship is healthier.
Well, okay, great perspective. The problem is that people look at the word responsibility as blame, shame, fault, and duty. We've got to reformat the word responsibility, which is what we talk about here on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, is to look at responsibility that if I created 100% of what happened, and you ask those 4 little questions, how did I create it? What are the gifts and lessons? What's going to be different? And how can I use this for the greater good? It's amazing how that bomb defuses.
Yes, because while I'm in blame mode, I'm not in solution mode. As long as one part of me is blaming the universe, God, this person, my parents, my environment, for who I am, what I am, where I am, I will never move forward. But if I accept complete responsibility right here, yes, there may have been a number of people, situations that all conspire and colluded to put me in a position of pain. But right now, the most empowering thing I can do is accept responsibility for where I am and ask myself, what can I do to move forward?
Very good. And I will let that be the last word. Dr. Lieberman, amazing. For those of you, 7th caller or texter, 407-373-5959 to get your copy of Never Get Angry Again. 7th caller or texter, 407-373-5959. Dr. David Lieberman can be found at drlieberman.com. And the book, where can we find the book, Dr. Lieberman?
Book is available at fine bookstores, and probably not fine bookstores. I never looked at those, but
well, we can get it just anywhere. It's a great book. It's a way to start dissecting yourself so that you can deal with yourself and not try to fix somebody else. Just work with yourself. Thank you, Dr. Lieberman. I really do appreciate you. And to you, my listening friends, we are ready to look if you want to look at your life as a victim, you can, but 100% responsibility is where freedom and empowerment lies. Remember, I'll be right here waiting for you. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job. Good job. This is the stuff I talk about on my show. Many people don't understand the word responsibility and are offended. It was not my fault that this person did this to me.
Yeah.
But when you look at it without emotion, that's the key.
Yeah.
I always say, when you figure out the problem, the solution to this problem, 2 + 2 =
4.
4. Now, I can't believe it's 4. You know, I can't believe 4 thinks it's 2 plus 2. You know, it's like, well, how can we get so wild up with a 4? You know, just that same way is what I would say. 2 plus 2 equals 4. You know, this happened to me. How did I create it? I was born to it. I was born in it. It's not about fault. You see, people can't get to that. How did I create it?
Yes, that's painful. It's very, very painful. But when we're able to acknowledge that it is painful, but pain isn't bad. Pain is okay. Running away is bad. Pain is not a reason not to do something. I always tell my kids, irresponsible is a reason not to do something. Pain is okay.
Yes, yes. Well, this has been a great conversation. I feel like I'm talking to my brother from another mother.
You are absolutely fantastic. You are a great talent yourself. And hopefully we'll have the opportunity to chat again. And if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to ask.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Lieberman. I'm looking forward to seeing how people embrace your book, because it's time for us to reformat the word responsibility. And it's nice to have a brother in crime to kind of promote the word in a new way, a way that is empowering instead of demotivating.
Yes.
And you know, there was a time that, well, I would say, fine, I'll take 10% responsibility, but it's your fault, you know, that I got upset. You know, I could go through that scenario over and over and over again. But it wasn't until I said, okay, how did I create this?
Right.
Honestly, look at this as not anything other than, how did I get it? I just got rear-ended 8 months ago in Jacksonville. It was my first week on the air in Jacksonville, and I got rear-ended. And somebody would say, well, how do you take responsibility for that? Well, I happened to be there. I slowed down and I turned right. Oh, I lost him. I lost Dr. Lieberman, but I don't know if he's going to come on. But anyway, I'll finish the story. So I turned right, but hey, what happened? Somebody else hit me. Oh, and he's calling me right now. So the bottom line is, that's how I created. I was there. The second question, asking what gifts and lessons. The gifts and lessons of being rear-ended is I've learned the power. Oh, here he's calling me. Here you go. Did you abandon me, Dr. Lieberman? Here's Dr. Lieberman. I don't know if you see him. Do you want to?
Sorry.
No. Actually, go ahead. You know what? You can get back on.
In the middle of that, I'm so sorry.
No, you can get back on. Okay, if you want to, the number is the same number that you clicked onto. You can go back on if you want to finish it.
Now, did we
The number is 656-746.
I'm sorry?
The Zoom number for the it's,
okay. Yeah, no, it's rebooting and everything.
Okay. Well, you can hear us. Okay, you can say goodbye. Go ahead.
Did we have more actual scheduled time?
Yeah, well, no, that's okay. That's okay. So just say goodbye to our viewing friends. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry about that. You know what? I'm going to take full responsibility. The cord wasn't plugged in completely. I like to blame my office here, but it was me. No assistant. It was me.
It's not about blame. We just learned from this. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lieberman. And for you, my viewers, we'll continue this conversation some other time. I look forward to our next conversation.